You can always find some great values in your fantasy drafts by identifying which players could have major bounce back seasons after a disappointing year. And today, on the Footballguys Fantasy Football Show, Dave Kluge and I are going to take a look at some players that we believe are going to give you guys the best value and come back from a disappointing year, whether that was from injury or the way they played. And we're also going to talk about some other players that maybe we're not sure about and just kind of see where we land on those. So, Dave, this has some familiar faces on it, and I know you're starting us off with a player that, boy, it wouldn't be our podcast if his name wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, Justin Fields right now is getting drafted as the QB 11. I've got him drafted as my QB 8. And talking about a bounce back here, I don't know if it's really much of a bounce back. The only difference this year is that he has a guaranteed starting role. Last year, we knew
Yeah.
that he was kind of on this short-term deal as Russ Wilson was coming back, but when we saw him out there, 20 plus points in 4 of his 6 starts last year, including a 37-point game against the Colts. Just call it like it is, man. Justin Fields might not be a good QB. He might be. I mean, he's still just 26 years old. He could still potentially develop, but I think that there's this problem where the prior ideas that people have about Justin Fields bleed into the fantasy analysis. Sure, he might struggle to read defenses. He might check down too frequently, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter when he runs the way that he does. He is up there with Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels as the only guy who could realistically rush for 1,000 yards this year. He did that 2 years ago and finished as the QB 6 in fantasy this year. He just prints fantasy points when he's on the field, the way that he plays. He runs a lot, he takes deep shots downfield, and right now, where he's going, I think he's an easy pick because there's no real threat to take his job this year. They gave him what's kind of a 1 year deal. Like the headline said 2 years, but it's basically a 1 year with a team option. I think they're going to give him an honest opportunity to play this year. I don't imagine a situation where Tyrod Taylor comes in mid-season. That's just kind of a lost effort there. So Justin Fields is going to be the starter this year. He's going to score a ton of fantasy points. If we're looking 2026 and beyond, I can't tell you what the future is going to hold for Justin Fields, but I can tell you that he's almost assuredly going to be a top 10 quarterback this year.
Yeah, it's almost not fair to say bounce back because he's not really bouncing back from anything. He's bouncing back from not getting to start a full
Right.
season. Like that's kind
Right.
of it. It's more like he's just getting a bunch of opportunity, and that's something that we always say that for other positions, running back, wide receiver. Oh, they're finally going to get opportunity. Quarterbacks, you either know or you don't. And for him, it was just kind of he got to come in and play quarterback for a little bit in place of Russ. Now we have the idea he's playing all season. Like
Right.
unless it's just horrendous, which I can't imagine it's any worse here than it was in Pittsburgh or anywhere else.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, even if it is horrendous play, like I don't know if he's going to leave or if he's going to get benched for Tyrod Taylor. I've got to imagine there was some sort of handshake agreement that he'll get to start this full year because the Steelers tried to retain him, and it sounds like they wanted to bring in competition. They wanted to see what they have in some of the other quarterbacks there, and that's why he left Pittsburgh. So I
Mhm.
don't think he would have signed with a different team unless they told him that he was going to be the surefire starter for the entire season because he is still young. And like I said, it's kind of this 1 year with a 1 year team option. But if he plays well over these next 2 years, he's going to hit the market as a 27-year-old and can go get a bag. And I think that's what he really wants right now is to try to get some long-term security. And I think that that's what was appealing to him in this New York role is just simply that he's going to be able to start, which he couldn't do in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, man, you buy into the narrative of the Ohio State re-team up with Garrett Wilson?
I mean, what I buy into is that Justin Fields struggles to get past his first read. So I think that Garrett Wilson is going to volume his way into 130, 140 targets this
That's
year. And I think that we're going to see something similar to what DJ Moore did in 2022, where he was a top 15 wide receiver. And obviously Garrett Wilson now $130 million. They inked him up to be a part of the long-term plans, but we know that Justin Fields, it might not be pretty, but I think we know what to expect here. He's going to throw the ball a lot to Garrett Wilson. He's going to check down a lot to Brees Hall, and he's going to run the ball a lot. So I think that the Jets offense as a whole might not be great. This could be a 3-13 or a 3-14 team at the end of the season. But I think for fantasy purposes, it's a very clean offense where I want Justin Fields, I want Garrett Wilson, and I want Brees Hall because I know they're getting touches.
Garrett Wilson's been, it's weird to say sneaky good for NFL purposes.
Yeah.
I had a friend that was like, really? He got extended? Hasn't he just put up very mediocre stats? I'm like, dude, it's been 3 years
1,000
over
plus every
1,000
year.
yards. Yeah, like he just had 100 receptions last
Yep.
year, 7 touchdowns. Like he's been good with just
Mhm.
bad quarterback play. It's insane.
He's a
I,
new DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, just one of those guys who we know is really good. The peripheral metrics tell us he's good. The film tells us he's good. He's just kind of been in quarterback hell his entire career.
yeah, man. I don't know if it's gonna get any better, but it's good. You're gonna get some sort of fantasy value out of him. I think he's appropriately priced. All right, let's go to the next player on here. I've got a running back who, once again, I think there's a little bit of both. He didn't get to play the full season, and the offense around him was just very weird. I want to talk about Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back, and looking back, I don't think we're going to see a guy that has that same RB1 overall potential that he's had in the past. But you look at this offense, the Colts quarterbacks, man, they had just 3 games over 250 passing yards, which, by the way, I said Colts quarterbacks. It was just all Joe Flacco. Like there was no one else on this team that was able to pass the ball. Daniel Jones is now one of the guys competing for the starting quarterback job, has a career yards per game of 211. Anthony Richardson 159. Like this is not going to be a passing offense. This team is going to live through the run. They were 6th in run play percentage last year, and especially over those final 3 games where they jumped to 4th overall. This is just a team that they need Jonathan Taylor to be the lifeblood of their offense. And I think we get into the narrative of Anthony Richardson is running quarterbacks. That's bad for Jonathan. Jonathan Taylor. I almost said Jonathan Stewart. But we saw that it was small sample size. Last 3 games with Anthony Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts knew they had to lean into Jonathan Taylor. 25 rush attempts per game. He had that huge blow up game against the Titans for 218 yards, 3 touchdowns. Daniel Jones has kind of been able to show us, not necessarily that he's good, but that people can be good and productive around him. Like we saw Saquon be good every single year. I think that Jonathan Taylor's in a similar tier, maybe not quite as good skill wise or in the receiving game, but he's still a very, very good running back. There's no real competition for him. I know people are excited about DJ Giddens, the rookie. I still hold my hat up for Khalil Herbert, but hey, Jonathan Taylor's the starter over there. The only concerns for me is the offensive line took a big hit. Ankle injuries have become a thing. We can't really predict the ankle injuries going forward, but when he's healthy, he's just always been a top 7 running back in points per game. And right now he's going as running back 8. I think this is a guy that we could potentially see him fall further if excitement builds up for any one of these other guys like a Bucky Irving or anything like that. So if you're able to get a guy like Jonathan Taylor at like running back 8, 9, 10, something like that, I think it's just a massive value.
Yeah, and this is a guy who just a few years removed from being the number 1 overall running
Right.
back in fantasy. And like you said, over the last 3 weeks, averaging over 30 half PPR points per game. The ceiling is still there. He's just been banged up with injuries his entire career. You make the comparison to Saquon Barkley, feels very reminiscent to early career Saquon Barkley, where he was just always dealing with some sort of injury here. But yeah, this is an easy one. Jonathan Taylor is just kind of sitting in that pocket in drafts right now with James Cook and Chase Brown, where you can just wait until round 3 and feel like you're walking away with a guy who could potentially be the overall RB1 this year.
It's crazy, man. It's just crazy to see him on that 2-3 turn where it's like, if I'm sitting at the beginning of round 3 and Jonathan Taylor is there for me to whatever my build is, right? Like he could be my running back 1 in round 3. He could be my running back 2 if I went with some sort of a running back heavy build. Whatever it is. Yeah, dude, that's exciting. That's
Josh Jacobs is sitting there too. It's crazy to me that Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, James Cook are all going in round 3. Those guys feel like they should be round 2 picks, but are just getting pushed down for whatever reason.
Yep, I've got Jacobs 1 spot behind Jonathan Taylor in my rankings, so like I believe they're essentially the same player. Dave, before we move on here, we got a couple other players that we want to talk about. Before we move on, just want to remind everybody, got a bunch of ways you can enjoy this show. First one, right here on YouTube. So if you're watching, take a sec, give this a like, pound that thumbs up button. Yeah. Drop a comment down below. Tell us how smart or how stupid we are, or just say that you like the show and that you enjoy fantasy football, because it's a game and it's supposed to be fun. Be less angry, world. And then obviously subscribe to the channel, because we have got our episodes are going to be ramping up as we get closer to the NFL season. We're going to be going 3-4 times a week as we get into the NFL season. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's just, man, football's almost here, Dave. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's just the off season feels like it takes forever, but then it just gets here so fast when the NFL season arrives.
Yeah, we kind of get through this lull in like June and July, and then as soon as you get out of that lull, like we just had rookies are starting to report to training camp, and now it's just like warp speed to week 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. It's just it feels like the next, I don't know, 3 weeks are just going to fly by here. Speaking of, nope, I don't have a segue for that. I was going to say, speaking of flying by, nope, there's nothing. Let's just go to our next players on here. Dave, hit us with your next guy, Alvin Kamara, because this one intrigues me. I like Alvin Kamara. I'm worried about the Saints. So what makes you say that he can bounce back?
I mean, the Saints were terrible last year, and it didn't really matter either. I mean, I think we
Checkmate.
had this fear a couple of years ago where Alvin Kamara lost Drew Brees, and we said, "Oh, like Drew Brees, check down king. Is Alvin Kamara still going to be able to produce?" And he's been just fine without Drew Brees. And let me ask you a quick question, Alfredo. Trivia here.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara injured in Week 15. Going into that week, and he missed the rest of the season after that Week 15 injury. Going into that week, where do you think Alvin Kamara was in scoring?
Was he like running back 6 or 7?
He was the RB5 in half PPR, and he was the RB3 in full
There
PPR
we go.
before that injury. And Dan Hendry talked with him a couple of weeks ago, and he made such a good point that there's kind of this out of sight, out of mind factor where a guy doesn't help you win in the fantasy playoffs, and people sort of forget about him. But had he finished the year on the pace that he started the year, we'd probably be drafting him right alongside Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, these guys who we thought were kind of approaching the end of their career. The only difference is Alvin Kamara missed the fantasy playoffs, so people who drafted him didn't get to win their leagues, but the reality is that he was crushing last year. His involvement in the passing game as a receiver, I don't expect that to change too much. I've got some expectations for Kendre Miller, a guy that I like this year, but Alvin Kamara is still just in the prime of his career, hasn't showed any signs of slowing down. He is just a master at avoiding contact and avoiding injury. He'll get these little, dings here and there where he might miss a handful of games, but his usage in the passing game gives him such a high floor and such a high ceiling. Right now, he's being drafted as the RB15, which is just insane to me, seeing what he's done throughout his career right now. I've got him an RB11, and admittedly, even that feels like it's a little bit too low. You got Chase Brown and Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs ahead of him, but Alvin Kamara is one of those guys that I have been just easily reaching for, at the end of round 3, beginning of round 4, where he's typically fallen later than that. I don't let him fall because I'm okay just taking him around early to make sure I get him on my team.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where I have Alvin Kamara ranked right now. Pulling up my rankings, and yeah, I've got Alvin Kamara at running back 14. Like I'm still very much in, and like just after hearing you say all this, it feels low. It feels
Right.
like I should have Alvin Kamara ahead of Breece Hall. Like I should have him ahead of Bucky Irving. Like I know how crazy this sounds to people on the outside
That's
because
where I've got him. Yeah.
we've seen these rankings all year. This is where these guys go, but I mean, like you're saying, man, he was, what was it, running back 2 in PPR
He was a running
formats
back.
up until
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like what do we? It's just
He was
crazy.
second in the league in touches per game. So I've got him in the same tier. So technically RB11, I guess you can kind of make a case for like
Yeah,
RB8, but it's Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, and Alvin Kamara. That's a tier for me. And then behind him is Kyron Williams, Brees Hall, Bucky Irving, but I prefer Kamara ahead of those guys. And it's tough in drafts because Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, their ADP dictates that they go 2 rounds earlier, so you don't have to draft Alvin Kamara ahead of them, but you can take one of those guys in round 3 and then come back in round 4 and add Alvin Kamara on top of it.
it's such an interesting domino effect where player misses playoffs,
Hmm.
fans hate player,
Hmm.
ADP reflects that hatred,
Hmm.
rankings reflect ADP, fans don't draft player, player exceeds ADP, we love player.
Yep.
And it's just like this vicious cycle of life here with fantasy football. I think it's just so funny. There's another guy I've got on the list here too who missed games at a very important, crucial part of the season in those fantasy playoffs, and we hated him for it. Absolutely
Yep.
hated him for it. But yeah,
Yep.
I,
It's a
I
thing,
gotta
recency
be.
bias. The thing that we remember most. I feel like it's the fantasy playoffs and week 1. And I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, but like
That's fine.
week 1,
It's our
like look at
show. Someone's gonna show up and
right.
tell us we can't talk about this. Let's do it.
But I think like the week 1 bias and the fantasy playoff bias is a very real thing that you can kind of leverage and take advantage of. And Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, I feel like, is the perfect example of that. Where week 1, Isaiah Likely was very much so the more involved tight end. Gave us the number 1 overall tight end finish. Mark Andrews was an afterthought. You look from week 2 through the end of the season, Mark Andrews was the tight end 5. Isaiah Likely was outside of the top 25 tight ends, but people still remember that week 1 game more than they remember the next 17 weeks because there's just this weird bias there. And then the same thing with the league winners. I mean, we were victim of it last year with Zamir White and Ty Chandler, these guys that were kind of league winners at the end of the season. We were going back to the well and drafting them again the year after. But there is definitely a week 1 and a fantasy playoff bias that bleeds into rankings every single year.
I'm sitting here looking at my rankings. I just moved Alvin Kamara up to running back 12.
That's what we're talking about. Let's go.
Sound a little more sincere. You sound like my mom when I do something successful now at this age. I'm so proud of you.
Happy to get you there. And there's a guy we'll talk about later on the show that I moved up during a show last week because sometimes you just get like a good nugget of information and you're like, you know what, I overlooked this, and you move a guy up a few spots. So that's a tease for a guy I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the show.
God, I could go for some nuggets right now. I'm hungry. All right, next player on here. Dave, you have been singing this guy's praises, and I was notably skeptical on this player last year because I felt like, man, there's not a whole lot else he does aside from what he does well. Turns out, when you play professional football, you really only have to be good at a couple things. And if you're on a good team, like, they're just going to have you keep doing those things. And Rashee Rice is that guy for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you look back at how the season started for the Chiefs, the offense was just running through two guys, neither of which were named Travis Kelce. Everything was going through Isaiah Pacheco and Rashee Rice. And there was all this excitement about Xavier Worthy, who really doesn't start to shine until Rashee Rice is injured. And he's out for the rest of the season. Isaiah Pacheco out for the rest of the season. The Chiefs have to change the way that their offense runs. I mean, you look at those first 3 weeks, and I know, small sample size, I'm not trying to get carried away, but Rashee Rice was the wide receiver 2 overall. I mean, in that small sample size, yeah, your wide receiver 2 overall, your wide receiver 2 in points per game. He's a PPR monster, and he's been a top 24 wide receiver or better in 8 of his last 9 games where he's played and not, injured. He's had plenty of time to recover from his injury. Hold on, I'm about to cough. This is gonna, oh no, hold on.
Well, Alfredo's coughing. I want to say, you mentioned Isaiah Pacheco. I've come full circle on Isaiah Pacheco. Just
there we go.
Figured I'd fill some time there. I've been drafting a ton of him lately. I know we had a little disagreement about Pacheco a few weeks ago, but let's hear more about Rashee Rice.
You me disagree? No. Sorry. Yeah, that one was that cough was coming quick. But yeah, man, Rashee Rice, it's just, I feel like we're still not valuing him where he should be. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the excitement over a guy like Xavier Worthy, where I think it's so interesting. Like, you look back, there's one stat that gets banded about a lot, and I try not to get too lost in stats, but the first downs per route run is something that I think has been interesting, just thrown out there by Ryan Heath over at Fantasy Points. Xavier Worthy wasn't exactly great in that aspect, 58th in first down per route run. And what happened was he became a successful wide receiver once Rashee Rice was injured because he got put in the Rashee Rice role. Once he got put in this Rashee Rice role, all of a sudden he's in the slot 40% of the time. The ADOT gets cut in half. ADOT is average depth of target for those of you the newer to the channel. He gets dropped from nearly 12 yards to 6.5 yards. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of becomes this really inefficient volume guy that they wanted him to do the same things as Rashee Rice. However, he doesn't break tackles the same way Rashee Rice does. He doesn't fight for the ball the same way Rashee Rice does in traffic. So a lot of this had to be short stuff by the line of scrimmage, screens, things that can get him in open space. And once Rashee Rice is back, you know who's really good at the Rashee Rice role? Rashee Rice. And so Xavier Worthy is going to go back to being this guy, what they tried to do most likely at the beginning of the season, which was they tried to just have him stretch the field. And that's where I see him potentially going back to. Rice going back to his role. I've got him as my wide receiver 14, and I honestly think I'm probably still too low on him at this point, Dave.
Yeah, I've got him. I've got him at wide receiver 13. So, and it's really tough when you start looking at other guys ahead of him: AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ladd McConkey, Drake London. It's tough to move him ahead of those guys. But
who do you have right behind him?
Behind Rashee Rice, Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Jamison Williams. So,
okay, I have Higgins ahead. I think that's the only difference that we have there.
Yeah, so I also have Jackson Smith-Njigba ahead of Rashee Rice, but very bullish on JSN. So yeah, I think Higgins is kind of the difference for us. And my Higgins take is just that I love T. Higgins and have drafted him year after year after year, and it is just such a frustrating experience when he puts up 0 points when he's active and gets hurt all the time. My my T. Higgins ranking is very heavily biased towards rostering him over the last few years. But Rashee Rice, man, high floor, high ceiling, and yeah, I don't know what there isn't to like about this guy. Like just blistering efficiency. The second half of his rookie season picked up right where he left off going into year two. And I think a lot of people see the knee injury and that scares him. An LCL is nothing. I mean, that's something that he's going to bounce back from, and already back to 100%. They said he's been a full go throughout OTAs. He's going to be a full go through all of training camp. And they did kind of try to shoehorn Xavier Worthy into this role last year that I don't think he is made for, where he was kind of doing the gadgety near the line of scrimmage after the catch stuff, and he just doesn't have the strength and the tackle breaking abilities that Rashee Rice does. So I think this offense flows through Rashee Rice again. Like I said,
100%.
got him at wide receiver 13. I wish I could move him up. It's just really tough when there's a lot of really good wide receivers in the NFL right now.
I just moved him up wide receiver 13.
There you go.
T. Higgins just moved down to wide receiver 14 for me. And by the way, like guys, this is how open you should be to adjusting your ranks and understanding analysis with fantasy football. Like yes, you should have conviction in what you're doing and what you're saying, but like be open to new data and other opinions. And just like, that's what we're here for, man. It's a game. It's a game. Dave, before we move on, we've had something really cool that we got to do. Mostly you, like if I'm just being 100% honest, I think I contributed like 0.001% to this, but the Football Guys magazine looks so damn cool. I love the cover. I love the inside with the articles and the way it's set up. Like it is just stealing the line from our boss, our head honcho here, Joe Bryant. There's just something about having the physical print of a magazine in your hands. It's very nostalgic. It takes you back to the simplest times of fantasy football. Can you talk on this for just like a sec, man? Because you guys did such a damn good job. It looks great. The analysis is awesome, and a lot of people put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I've got to hold a copy. We've got it at the press right now. Those should be coming out within the next couple of weeks. Today is actually the last day for pre-order sales too. So if you order now, $5 off your copy. So it's $20, and we're doing free shipping. So $20 out the door to get a copy delivered to you. Those should start delivering in early August. I think we're saying August 4th is the potential delivery date. But just an amazing product. And this isn't just a magazine. Like when Joe and Bob Harris brought this idea to me and said, "Hey, we want to do a magazine," I was thinking like cheap, flimsy paper stapled together, like just this. I was like, I don't know if there's really a market for that. And then we looked at the product that we're actually doing. It's a perfect bound, nearly 200 pages, like thick paper, matte finish. It is just a beautiful, beautiful magazine. So really excited for this to come out. We have rankings, projections, strategy articles, some evergreen stuff in there. Joe Bryant wrote a refresher on value-based drafting. He also did a 25 lessons learned in 25 years. This is definitely, something that'll help prepare you for the 2025 fantasy season. But I think there's some evergreen content in there. It's kind of like I don't want to say commemorative or collectible, but that's definitely what it feels like. We leaned into the 25-year anniversary of Football Guys. It is selling out quickly. So pre-order sales are going to end today. We're expecting to be sold out by the end of the week. So definitely order yours if you haven't already.
I mean, it's like a coffee table book, man. Like
Seriously.
it's beautiful.
And you saw it last year.
Like
you saw you saw the example last year. It's the same printer. You remember, Alfredo, was that homesteading magazine that we looked at, and I was like, this is not a magazine. Like, this is a book. And they said, well, we're going to call it a magazine anyway. But this is very much so like a book that you can hold.
And what I love is that you got like the things in there. You mentioned there's just evergreen content. There's the 25 lessons learned. There's the note from Joe. Like there's so many things in there that aren't just like, well, that's going to be outdated in a couple of weeks. Like, no, this is stuff that's just going to stay with you forever. So if you have even just like a modicum of fandom for Football Guys, you appreciate what has been done here, you like the analysis from the people that work here at Football Guys, this is a must have. It's not just something that's going to be informative and cool to look at. It's a keepsake. Like it's something you want to have. When I get mine, I'm going to frame it, put it up on the wall. Like it's going to look great here. I'm like not being hyperbolic. I'm going to do that here in the room. All right, let's back to playing fantasy analysis here. Dave, we got 4 more players that we want to talk about here that we specifically like as bounce backs. Talk to us about TJ Hockenson, because I think there are valid concerns that people have about JJ McCarthy, but I think there's also a real reason to be excited about the Vikings offense because Kevin O'Connell keeps proving he can do it, and TJ Hockenson could be the best value at tight end of any player.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys this year that I feel like I'm guys that I've faded year after year after year that now I'm liking the value this year, and guys who I've really liked over the years are now getting a little bit too expensive for me. And TJ Hockenson is one of those guys that I haven't really been crazy about when he was getting tight end two overall average draft position, but now he's falling down to tight end five. He's going tight end six in some leagues as well. And I think that we've just overcorrected here a little bit. He isn't your game breaking tight end. He's not a George Kittle type where he's going to rip through the seam of a defense and break tackles and score from 60 yards out. But what he is just a target magnet that just sits there in the flat and is always wide open. And he definitely benefits from playing with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, who are drawing the defensive gravity. And it allows him to just sit there and be wide open and catch a bunch of targets. But when you look over the course of his career, 2020, he was the tight end four. 2021, he was the tight end six. 2022, he was the tight end two. And then in 2023, before tearing his ACL, he was the tight end three. So worst season was tight end six, just outside of the top five. And then last year, he returned in week 9 from that ACL tear. Clearly wasn't himself and was the per game tight end 18. And I think that people have just forgotten how consistent and steady this guy was. Still very much so on the right side of the age curve. Best years are probably still ahead of him. And I think when you look at JJ McCarthy, obviously this guy can push the ball down the field. We know he's got a big and a live arm, and we're excited for Justin Jefferson, drafting him as the wide receiver 2 overall. But TJ Hockenson is the guy that's getting overlooked. And we see this all the time with young, inexperienced quarterbacks that they do lean on the tight end, who is that big target that just sits there in the short parts of the field. So, he's not a guy I'm aggressively paying up for because, going as the tight end 5 overall, I've got him as my tight end 4. So I'm willing to draft him there. I think that you are better this year waiting for the Mike Gesicki's and the Tucker Crafts later in drafts. But if TJ Hockenson slips at all past ADP, he's a guy that I'm happy to take, knowing that I could potentially be getting top 2, top 3 production from a guy, and I don't have to pay up for him the way you have to pay up for these other elite tight ends.
Where do you have him? You may have mentioned it. Where do you have him?
Tight end 4.
Same.
Tight end 4. Yeah. So again, not like taking a huge stance here against ADP. He's the tight end 5 overall. But yeah, I've got him ahead of Mark Andrews, ahead of Travis Kelce, ahead of Sam Laporta, ahead of Tucker Kraft. And admittedly, I do think that he is kind of in that tight end dead zone. This isn't an area of the draft that I'm aggressively targeting any tight ends, but if he's there, I'm happy to take him.
I'm right there with you on TJ Hockenson. I'm checking out my rankings right now, and I'm noticing I'm pretty in final. This is the year. It's like I'm doing the George Costanza thing where I'm just like going opposite and seeing how it works out for me, because this is the year I'm just coming around on all the players that I've been out on. And I've got David Njoku a bit higher in my rankings than I typically do. Where just out of curiosity, because I'm curious about the tight end landscape. Where do you have him? Like, where's that
Tight end 9.
Hockenson tier? Okay.
Yeah, so I've got Njoku at tight end 9. One of the big movers for me has actually been Tucker Kraft, a guy that I wasn't crazy about early in the offseason looking at the target competition, but the more that I dig into the efficiency metrics, what he does after the catch has inspired me a little bit. And then also him getting the tush push snaps as well could set him up for a kind of weird ceiling outcome here where he could potentially get some rushing touchdowns sprinkled in as well. So that's kind of, I mean, if we want to talk kind of game theory here and how we're drafting players, George Kittle is the guy that I'm drafting more than anybody else. Getting him as the tight end 3 in round 5 or 6 just feels like a complete cheat code right now. If I don't get George Kittle, though, I am typically waiting for that Tucker Kraft, David Njoku, Tyler Warren, Mike Gesicki, Jake Ferguson. There's guys going later that I like, but TJ Hockenson is a guy that I want to sprinkle into lineups here and there just because the ceiling and the floor are both pretty safe.
Yeah, I'm so intrigued by tight end. Like, this to me feels like the position that is the most, I don't want to say out of whack, because that makes it sound like it's bad, but it's just like it seems like it is the most up in the air, the most volatile right now. And really the 3 guys that are going to give you everything that you need are it's McBride, Bowers, Kittle in whatever order you get them in, and whatever, the value is. I think after that it becomes more of a crapshoot than ever. And it's just like I'm all in on going late tight end as best as you can if you miss out on one of those guys at a good value.
And I think what we're seeing right now is just this flattening of the position overall. It was like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, or just wait until the very end of your drafts. Well, Travis Kelce's getting a little bit older. Mark Andrews, I still like him this year. I've got him as my tight end 5, but did show some signs of regression last year. And then on top of these guys who have been kind of the stalwarts atop the fantasy rankings for the last half decade, in addition to them slipping a little bit, you've got Trey McBride and Brock Bowers and Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid and Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren and all of this, like this influx of young talent coming in. And then on top of that, you also have David Njoku and Evan Ingram and Jonnu Smith. These guys who have been kind of disappointing to start their career now in their second acts are looking like very good tight ends. Mike Gesicki is another guy that I'll throw in there as well. So you've got young players coming in. You've got the old elite players aging out. You've got these middling tight ends that are now stepping up and playing some of the best football of their career. And really what that tells me is there are like 18 tight ends that I'd be okay drafting this year and sticking in my tight end slot.
Stick it in your tight end slot? Come on now. Come on now. You can't just leave me with that.
I know. As soon as it came out of my mouth. All right, let's go to the next player. Yikes.
Stick some Brenton Strange in your tight end slot.
Oh, goodness.
This was, by the way, this is staying in. It's just we're too far into the pod.
It was halfway out my mouth, and I was just like, I can't believe this is the verbiage that I chose. Yes. Yeah.
All right. God, Dave, you are red now. God, this is all the more reason for you guys
to hide it.
Go over to YouTube. Check this out. If you listen, like, you gotta go to YouTube, man. You got it. All right. Next player on here that I want to talk about. I mentioned that there was going to be a player that got injured last year during that, like, the playoff run for everybody. But man, was he good while he was playing. It's Ken Walker III. And I talked about him on CBS Fantasy Football Today, talked about him at the Scott Fish Bowl where I was at, and I was hearing the conversations from people where they're just like, no, I'm not going to get him. He always gets hurt. Go ahead and just draft yourself some Zach Charbonnet instead. Well, I'm here to tell you, you're actually allowed to do both if you want. You can draft Ken Walker. You can draft Zach Charbonnet. You'll be perfectly fine if you need the insurance policy. But let me tell you, Ken Walker has been the clear running back 1 for the Seattle Seahawks during his time there. 63% of the rush attempts last year. Now under Mike McDaniel. What's Mike McDonald, right?
Right. Mike McDonald.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I almost started calling him, what's the singer?
Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah, thank you. Know me. Exactly where I was going. I was like, none of this could be right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, Ken Walker, he's been their lead guy, and now new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak comes in. His running back 1 gets massive opportunity. Second highest expected fantasy points per game since 2021, which is typically a good indicator of attempted volume. The only running back to get a higher expected fantasy points per game in that time is Christian McCaffrey. So basically, whoever the running back 1 is for Clint Kubiak is going to be a stud. So let's just do this, Dave. Let's say I tell you Ken Walker's going to miss some time, but you're going to get 13 games of Ken Walker being potentially the second highest opportunities running back in the NFL. Are you happy with that when you draft it in the, let's say, 4th round right now, which is where he's going?
Of course, but I don't know if you know the can of worms you're opening with that question, Alfredo. I posted this question on Twitter a couple off seasons ago, and Adam Harstead wrote a think piece on it, and JJ Zacharyson did a whole episode on it because the casual. So I ran this poll asking basically exactly what you're asking. Like, if you had a guy who was playing half the season and giving you 25 points per game, or a guy who played the full season for 15 points a game, who would you prefer? And the majority chose the guy who would play a full season for 15 points per game. So I think this is one of those like educational opportunities for us to try to explain to the audience that running backs specifically, it doesn't matter what they do over the course of the entire season. This is very much so a transactional slot in your lineup where you are just playing whoever has the opportunity on a week-to-week basis. And if you can get a guy, even if he is going to miss some games here and there, when he's got that high weekly ceiling, that is more valuable than the guy who is just going to give you consistent middling production for a full year.
Yeah, and it's not even when there's injury too. Like, we do this when players are expected to miss time because of suspension. Alvin Kamara 2 years ago, he was dropping way down draft boards because of his suspension early. I think it was like 3 games.
Yeah.
And we're just like,
And then he
no,
just showed up and was like the RB1 for the rest of the
not
season.
interested in that. And it's just like,
Yep.
guys, what? Like, we know that every single, and this is like what I want to get out, is that we know that every single player can get injured. Are there some that we feel are more prone to injury, even though I know a lot of our medical experts we talk to will say injury prone is not a real thing? There are players who are maybe more susceptible to injury because of the way they play the game. That's very possible. So the thing here for Ken Walker is you have to decide, is he worth the risk for you that you can say, okay, I'm going to get 8, 10, 13, maybe a full season of really good games from him. I mean, Dave, I want to say where I have it written on here. It's crazy. Last year, Ken Walker was 5th amongst running backs in target share. 5th. He was on pace to be second amongst running backs in receptions had he not gotten hurt. Like it's just insane to me. He was through the first 12 weeks of last year, he was running back 7 in points per game, ahead of Devon Achane, who, by the way, let's just be real, he's smaller and also has injury concerns and bigger concerns around him, like Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins' offensive line and other things. But we are happy taking him early 2nd round. Some people late 1st round. I'm there. I'm willing to take him late 1st round. We have to be willing to accept the risk that comes with these players that give us high ceiling. And that's what Ken Walker does. You're able to draft him at like running back 17, but with this newfound reception share, he gives you top 5 running back upside.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. And, you talk about the injury prone, how it isn't really much of a thing. I don't know if you saw me. I was typing around. I was trying to look something up real quickly. Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, and James Conner going into last season had played 20 combined seasons between the 3 of them and 3 fully healthy seasons between the 3 of them. I think all of those guys, Saquon, Aaron Jones, James Conner, all guys that we probably would have deemed to be injury prone going into last season, all 3 of them played a full season last year. Like, this just happens. And this is something Adam Hutchinson and I, we just talked about recently. He was on my show and we talked about all these different injured players. And the reality is that 11% of running backs are going to play a full 17 game season. Like, you have basically a 1 in 10 shot of drafting a guy who isn't going to get hurt at the running back position. So enjoy it while you can. If you're getting 8 games from a guy, 10 games from a guy, or 17 games from a guy, you're not drafting them to be healthy for a whole season. You're drafting them so you can get the production when they're on the field. And I think people have just completely overreacted to Kenneth Walker's injuries.
Here's the lesson. And I think you love ice cream. I know you eat ice cream like
every
day.
night. Yep,
right.
Yep.
To me, drafting the Ken Walkers, the Devon Achanes, the guys that give you the injury concerns, that's just going out and getting your favorite ice cream. Or for me, like, I love gelato. Like, I think it's even a step up. The people who are like, you know what? I'm going to go get frozen yogurt because it's less calories and I can eat a lot more of it. Like, to me, that's what we do in fantasy. We're just like, I can get more games out of this player, but it's going to be worse. I feel more comfortable with that. Like, what?
I do like frozen yogurt.
Come on,
I
Dave.
can't besmirch for
Nobody actually likes frozen yogurt. They like all the toppings they can put on. That's why they give it to you in such a gigantic bin. Like, they give it to you like a Costco-sized bucket that you can walk around with.
I like orange. I'm not gonna besmirch or frozen yogurt. I like it.
Let us know in the comments. Gelato, ice cream, frozen yogurt. Ken Walker, what's best? All right, Dave. I want to let everybody know we got something cool that we are both doing each. And no, the rumors have been greatly exaggerated. People are asking if mom and dad are getting a divorce. Like, that's not happening. We just also want to do cool things on the side as well here. Dave, you have brought back the Launchpad, which, I mean, such a fun show. Like, I got to really, I think, meet you almost, where I think the first time
it was your first live show ever. Yeah. It was the Launchpad like 5 years ago.
Yeah, with you, me, and Scott Pianowski was the other guest. And, like, I'll never forget
Stepmom
that,
Lauren.
man.
You were on a few times.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, like, it was just, it is a lot of fun, man. Like, it's such a good show. You bring on such awesome guests. That's something that you've got over on our podcast stream right now. And we're figuring out if we can convince you to go over to video. But I mean, you get some amazing, who have been some of the guests that you've had on lately?
Oh boy, just about all of the OGs from Football Guys that you could imagine: Sigmund Bloom, Bob Harris, Matt Waldman, Jason Wood, and then some friends from outside of the company as well: Theo Greminger, Andrew Cooper, Drawing a blank right now, but we got Jared Spola coming on this week from Draft Shark. So alternate weekly between Football Guys guests and then outside of Football Guys guests.
Yeah, man, it's honestly it's been impressive to see you come back and do this, and you inspired me. I wanted to bring back my old show, the Pretend GM, and what I want to do is be able to bridge the gap between the fantasy analysis that so many of us do and the way that our audience and the people at home, the way they play the game, and like let's actually just talk about some evergreen stuff. Evergreen meaning like it can you can watch this 5 years from now and the video still makes sense. We're not talking about a single player, how each of these people go through their quote process of how they make rankings, how they make start sit decisions, what goes into their idea of like I need to look for a trade, all that stuff. How their perspective on life has just changed the way they view this game. So we've got some great stuff. Launchpad, Pretend GM. Make sure you check that out. If you're listening on the pod, it's going to be in the exact same podcast feed. Pretend GM is going to be on YouTube very soon. First episode coming Monday, July 21st. All right, Dave. Found a couple players here. This one you and I were talking about before the show, and I like this because you and I are both coming around on him as potentially the one of the best values in fantasy drafts.
Yeah, so Stefon Diggs, and we talked earlier in the show about how you kind of moved your rankings here and there, and I did that last week when I was recording with Adam Hutchison. I think being self-aware is a very important thing, and something I have learned is that I suck when it comes to analyzing injuries. I was telling y'all last year to draft Christian McCaffrey and Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Brooks, and I was betting on medical science and hoping that everything would work out for these guys, and it didn't. So this year, I've just decided that I am not going to do any sort of injury analysis. I'm going to defer to people that I trust, and I trust Adam Hutchison very much so. He has led me in the right way year after year. He told me not to draft Cooper Kupp last year. He told me not to draft Jonathan Brooks last year, and I didn't listen. So this year, I am listening. And he is talking about Stefon Diggs coming back from this ACL tear. First of all, it was a very early season ACL tear, but he did a really interesting study where he was looking at two different buckets of wide receivers, essentially your field stretchers, your speedster guys, or your kind of savvy route runners, the guys who win with their polish. And I think we'd all agree that Stefon Diggs probably is one of the latters. And when you look at the guys that kind of fit into that bucket, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Julian Edelman, Keenan Allen, guys who came back the year after their ACL injury and immediately produced like they never missed a beat. And he thinks that Stefon Diggs is going to do the same. So right now, Football Guys projections, we've got him projected for 11.3 points per game. If he just does that, he's crushing his ADP. But if he comes back and looks like Stefon Diggs from pre-injury, pre-ACL injury last year, establishes himself as that wide receiver one in New England, he's going to be in league winning territory. I mean, right now, this guy is getting drafted as the wide receiver 42. Indications right now are that he could potentially be ready for week one. Some clips that we've seen coming out of Patriots camp are that he looks quick. He's not really favoring a leg or anything like that. He looks good right now. Last year, before tearing his ACL, he was the wide receiver 10 in fantasy football. He's still got it. He's still a good player. And I did just talk about Demario Douglas 2 weeks ago on the show as another guy that I like going much, much later in drafts, but I'm okay paying up for Stefon Diggs. I'm okay taking Demario Douglas late. I think this is a wide open wide receiver room, but Stefon Diggs right now getting drafted as a wide receiver 42. I've got him as my wide receiver 35. So a guy that I'm reaching like a round or two early for to get on my team now after having this conversation with Adam last week.
Yeah, I've got Stefon Diggs as my wide receiver 37 right now, and I think that all remains very fluid because I've got him around the same area as like Jawan Jennings, Josh Downs, Roma Dunze, and I mean, it really feels like just Stefon Diggs is better than all those guys, right? But like some of the other players I got around him, Jacoby Myers, Xavier Worthy, George Pickens, if all breaks right and Stefon Diggs is ready to go, like this is the wide receiver one for Drake May,
Mhm.
who is just going to be getting peppered with targets. If that's the case, and we get that news that hey, he's ready to go, no problem, like, I think I'd be moving Stefon Diggs up closer to like wide receiver 30, where I have Chris Godwin and Calvin Ridley and Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 29. Like that's where Stefon Diggs probably deserves to be.
And I think right now he is getting pushed down, suppressed a little bit in rankings because there's some uncertainty. If it comes out that he's going to start the season on PUP and miss the first 4 weeks, then we probably get a little bit nervous. But if the opposite happens and they say, hey, Stefon Diggs looks great, full go, he's going to be ready for week one, then he's probably moving inside the top 30 in consensus ranking. So right now, again, I don't analyze injuries. I don't have this injury database that Adam Hutchinson has. So I just defer to him here. He tells me that he thinks Stefon Diggs is going to return to form this year. I am putting my blind faith and trust in Adam Hutchinson, and you should too. I mean, he puts out not you, Alfredo. I know you do, but you, the listener. Adam is awesome.
Oh, I don't
He's a
have
guy that
blind
I
faith in
connected with.
anyone.
Well,
Not you, not Adam.
I connected with Adam years ago and helped him get this job over here at Football Guys. And at the time, it was very much so him kind of leaning on his knowledge as a physical therapist. He has since got his doctorate in physical therapy. He is also taking courses learning how to code. He's built out this unbelievable database with like every injury that's ever happened in the NFL. He can give you return to play expectations, when they'll come back, how much the injury will impact their potential scoring. I mean, just unbelievable stuff out there. So Adam Hutchinson, I've been kind of hyping him up all offseason, and I'm not going to stop.
By the way, just want to clarify for everyone, it's Hutchison. There's no N. You're not saying it, but it's a
Right.
common misconception.
It is. And I will say too, he used to have a big Twitter following, unfortunately got hacked. So if you see that Adam Hutchinson out there with a few hundred Twitter followers, that's him rebuilding
He's
his
legit.
brand. But he is legit. But you can find all this stuff, Football Guys. He puts out awesome in-season articles too. He does a Sunday night injury roundup where he goes through every injury and what he expects for them. He also does a Saturday update right before the games kick off, kind of saying what his expectations are. Just one of the best ways to get an edge in your league is paying attention to those injuries.
All right, last one on here. And it's the only quarterback I think that we spoke about here today. But I'm going to talk about Trevor Lawrence because I think just the Jaguars are in the best position to succeed that they've been in a long time. They've got a guy in Liam Cohen who has proven to be a good offensive mind, maybe even a great offensive mind if we're being honest here. Seeing what he was able to do with Baker Mayfield, with Bucky Irving, really having that offensive line come together the way they did. And even when players were out, all of a sudden, hey, Cade Otton is the guy that our offense runs through. Like Liam Cohen's shown that he can be a guy that can make this offense improve. And Trevor Lawrence is a guy I think we're starting to lose a lot of faith in. I've been seeing him called like Trevor mid Lawrence, Trevor, like he's just honestly a bust. Like a lot of people do think of him as a bust. I don't know that I'm there yet. I think we just need to have the context of who this player is and what's been going on around him. Now all of a sudden he's got Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter, a stable of running backs behind him, an improved interior offensive line that he has not had, and now all of a sudden a very good offensive mind. Like Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback 8 in 2022. He was quarterback 12 in 2023. We just had a down year in 2024, but Dave, I think a lot of people don't realize this about him is that Trevor Lawrence actually gives you a decent rushing floor of like around 300 rushing yards per year, 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns per year. It's very similar to guys that were also top 12 quarterbacks last year, Baker Mayfield, who was coached by Liam Cohen, and Brock Purdy. And I put Trevor Lawrence in that same bucket. I'm not going to rank him as high as those guys. I've got him as my quarterback 17, and I might be moving him a little bit ahead. You and I were talking about this beforehand. Like, I think because of the upside, I might push him ahead of Jared Goff, which I know sounds like crazy to some people because Jared Goff's like a top 12 guy for a lot of people. You mentioned you have Goff a little bit lower as well, right?
I am, yeah, much lower on Goff than the consensus and much higher on Trevor Lawrence than the consensus. I actually have Trevor Lawrence ahead of Jared Goff in my rankings.
Okay. Yeah. And like for me, I think it wouldn't take a whole lot of convincing for me to push Trevor Lawrence to quarterback 15 in my rankings and to be comfortable drafting him there. I think once you get outside of those top 12 and you're the last person in your league that's drafting a quarterback, just go for the upside, man. Like you don't win anything by getting a safe quarterback that's ranked at quarterback 17 or 18. Sorry to say it, but like CJ Stroud's and Michael Penix and a lot of these guys that don't give you a lot of rushing upside, it doesn't work. I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence is some sort of, crazy rushing quarterback, but I think that we are underselling how good this offense can be and how improved it can be with Travis Hunter there and Liam Cohen there. Travis Hunter's going to be getting a lot of targets in the screen game. Our buddy, Zadeh Kansabedian, who has been working with Football Guys for a long time. He posted this the other day. The Buccaneers in 1 year under Liam Cohen as offensive coordinator, 3rd in passing yards, 2nd in completion percentage, 2nd in passing touchdowns. This was a guy, remember, Baker Mayfield, who was also number 1 overall pick, deemed as a bust. I know it's getting a little narrative-y out here for people who are just like, show me the data. Well, I gave you the data on what Liam Cohen did for the Bucks. I gave you
Mhm.
the data on how good Trevor Lawrence has been in the past. We can look at last year as the outlier, sort of the missing season in there, and we can understand the context that this Jaguars team can be a lot better. And Trevor Lawrence right now, he's being drafted as quarterback 20. He's free. He's just free in drafts. You don't have to reach for him. You and I are willing to draft him well ahead of that spot.
Yeah, I've got him at QB 17. And, I think a lot of people are going to look at last year and say, well, Baker Mayfield, QB 4, he doesn't rush at all. And Jared Goff, QB 6, he doesn't rush at all. It's not to say that quarterbacks who don't rush can't give you elite finishes, but you're basically betting on outlier circumstances. Last year, Jared Goff, highest touchdown rate of his career. Last year, if you look at Baker Mayfield, highest completion rate of his career, highest touchdown rate of his career, most rushing yards of his career. So if you're betting on that to happen again, you're betting on an outlier season. That's not something that I'd
Right.
recommend doing. When you're drafting these guys that do rush the ball, it's giving them a little bit more insulation where they don't need to have career best efficiency metrics to finish with elite finishes. All they need is just a slight variance in the right direction for them to have an elite fantasy finish. And Trevor Lawrence, you talk about it, the rushing upside, he was banged up last year, so we didn't really see that at all. But this guy basically gives you 20 to 25 rushing yards per game, which that alone is an extra like half touchdown per game that you can just tack on top of his passing production. So, yeah, big fan of what the Jags are doing. Big picture this year, I like what James Gladstone has done. I like the big move to go out and get Travis Hunter, and I think that a lot of teams would have seen that they hit on Brian Thomas last year and got complacent there and said, "Hey, we've got our wide receiver one," but they went out and drafted Travis Hunter, who is a perfect complementary piece to Brian Thomas and can do a lot of the things that Brian Thomas can't do, and Brian Thomas can do a lot of the things Travis Hunter can't do. I imagine this high-low offense very similar to what the Bucks did last year with Mike Evans kind of being Brian Thomas and Chris Godwin kind of being the Travis Hunter. It's really easy to see this offense just immediately getting on track and looking just like the Bucks did last season.
Yeah, I'm excited for what they can be. I think that the Jaguars offense becomes one of the best values in fantasy football right now. Maybe not Brian Thomas because he's just still going early, but it's Travis Hunter, it's Travis Etienne, it's Trevor Lawrence, Brenton Strange. I think there's a lot of fun pieces in this offense that people just aren't quite sold on yet. Dave, we're going to talk about some other players that I think a lot of people are curious about, and we're just going to list them and try to pick one out of this group that we like. Um, but you also got something cool that you're doing, the Drafters live stream
Mhm.
that you did the other day. Talk to us about that because that's been a fun partnership that we're doing with Drafters.
Yeah, 2 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. We're doing it right here on this YouTube channel, youtube.com/footballguys fantasy. Had Dan Hendry on last week, who actually won this contest, got a $500,000 payout for taking the contest down. Tomorrow, I've got Justin Herzig joining me, one of the sharpest minds in best ball as well. And really simple show. We just hop on. We go in a drafter's room. We try to win this contest with $500,000 up top and kind of talk through our process and players that we like and things of that nature. So tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern with Justin Herzig right here on YouTube.
All right, let's do this. We got a list of players here. And rather than get into this long-winded thing, I just want you to give me a number, scale 1 to 5, 5 being your strongest level of confidence, 1 being your lowest, how confident you are in a bounce back for these
Okay.
guys. Okay.
These are coming
So
straight from the gut. I didn't prep for this whatsoever. So
no, no,
this will
neither
be
did
fun.
I.
Let's do
Neither
it.
did I. Let's just do this. So Christian McCaffrey, confidence level.
4.
Oh, you're like
Again,
you're
this is yeah, Adam Hutchinson. He said that he doesn't expect this to plague him and said that he is worthy of a first round pick this year.
all right. Adam Hutchinson, man. That's the secret weapon for fantasy football. Tyreek Hill.
2.5.
Oh, oh, not as Adam had bad things to say about Tyreek.
We didn't talk about Tyreek a ton, but I think it's just the whole Miami circuit, like him being so tied to Tua. It's not just Tyreek Hill potentially losing a step or not being the player he was. He's also just kind of falls apart when Tua isn't out there. So there's kind of two different routes that could cause the floor to fall out for him under Tyreek.
So ouch, I want to go back to this really quick. Christian McCaffrey, your confidence level is a 4. Where do you have him ranked?
I have moved him ahead of Ashton Jinty. I think I've got him as my running back 4 or 5. I've got him
Okay.
as my running back 5 overall. So right behind Saquon, Gibbs, Bijan, and Devon Achan.
I might have to do something similar, man. I've got him at 7, and I'm holding the mouse over the button right now to move him to running back 5. You know what? I'm doing it right
I
now.
mean, it's just one of those, like, when I'm sitting there with like the 8th overall pick in a draft, it's really hard to pass on Christian
Yeah.
McCaffrey, knowing that
Yeah.
you can potentially be getting a guy who's giving you 25 points per game.
Where do you have Ashton Jinty? You said, do you have him ahead of Derrick Henry or behind?
Ahead. So it's McCaffrey, then Ginty, then Henry.
I'm going to be a little bit lower. Not for any specific reason. I just think we tend to do this every year with rookies. We bloat them up a bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, running back 7 is a phenomenal season for him. And that's where I got him ranked, like running back 7. Okay. Let's keep going through this list here. Confidence meter on Breece Hall.
5. I don't think there's any reason, he was dealing with an MCL injury last year, and I don't think there's any reason to be concerned this year.
You worried that maybe they make it a little bit more of a rotation in that backfield with Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis?
Here, I'll sum up my Breece Hall thoughts really quickly here. If Aaron Glenn is dumb enough to put Breece Hall in a committee with Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen, I think every GM is going to be on the phone with the Jets Monday morning trying to pry him away and put him in a better situation. Breece Hall is just so much better than Davis and Allen. I think it would be just embarrassing to put him in a 3-way committee.
Okay. I still get a little bit worried about Breece Hall, man. He's just such an inefficient runner. But he gets that passing work, and I think that's what's going to help him here. If
Justin Fields checked down at one of the highest rates last year too, really kind of changed
if he
his
keeps
game in
leaning
that
into
aspect.
that.
Yeah.
All right, DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, 2.
Okay.
A lot of target competition there, and the effort from last year scared me.
Dak Prescott.
5. No reason not to. When he's healthy, he's great.
He's my quarterback 12.
I think I've probably got him similar. He's a guy that I've been drafting pretty aggressively. I'm not quite that high, but I've got him at 14.
I think the Cowboys are going to pass a ton.
Yeah.
Schottenheimer is actually a sneaky passing guy. He's like very balanced. Everyone thinks they're going to run a ton. They just don't have anything in the running game. I think their best running back is probably Jaden Blue, who's a pass catcher. So the George Pickens thing, Jake Ferguson coming back.
George Pickens, I mean, that signals to me that they want to throw the ball more. They've been a team that always throws the ball a lot without having a wide receiver too, and then they go out and they make a splashy move to bring in a wide receiver too. Yeah. I think we can easily see 500 plus attempts in this offense.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with Dak. Brandon Ayuk.
4 again. He got lumped in with Stefon Diggs, talking about injuries with Adam, that he is another one of those route runners. I think the concerns here are that he just might not be motivated the way some other NFL players are to get back out there. He just chill guy.
He's just a chill guy. Just a chill guy. Yeah, I snagged him in like round 13 of the Scott Fish Bowl. I was pretty happy about that. And then the Jawan Jennings news came out the next day.
Ooh, nice.
Chris Olave.
5. I mean, my concerns are about the quarterback room here, but concussions are fluky. It was awful what happened last year, but no trend or anything like that. I think it was just a bad luck over the last few years.
Travis Etienne.
I'll go with a 4 here. I still think he's the best running back in the room. Tank Bigsby is okay, and Bashal Tutin runs really fast when he's in spandex, but I think that Travis Etienne is probably the best running back here.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I couldn't pick Travis Etienne again for this type of episode. I think I've talked about him 4 times already this offseason. Same as this last guy, Isaiah Pacheco. What's the confidence meter?
I'm going to go with a 4.5 here. And this is a guy, I kind of touched on it earlier in the episode, but I've just come full circle on Isaiah Pacheco. And it's because about 2 weeks ago is when I plugged in and started doing best ball drafts. I'm doing like 3 to 5 drafts a day. And Pacheco was one of those guys that I wasn't crazy about. But then when I started drafting, and I'm like, wait, you're telling me I could just get this guy in like round 8? I have drafted more Isaiah Pacheco than any other running back over the last few weeks.
Nice. Nicely done. I think I've moved Isaiah Pacheco up. I've got him at running back 25. Still waiting to see what kind of information we get from the Quinshon Judkins thing. I think that was a mover in my rankings recently.
Yeah. And I think even the Pacheco stuff was, it was a show where you talked about Isaiah Pacheco and I talked about Brashard Smith. And I think that, the natural reaction there is, well, Alfredo hates Brashard Smith and loves Isaiah Pacheco, and Dave loves Brashard Smith and hates Isaiah Pacheco. That's not the case at all. I think that both of these guys are cheap enough that they're worth the shot. Like Isaiah Pacheco could easily get 250, 300 touches in this offense, and Brashard Smith, I remember both of them. We say it all the time, like this guy or this guy, both of them. You remember where that started, right? That was when we were talking about Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon years and years and years ago, when it
Both
was
of 'em.
just like everyone, it was these wars being had on social media, like who's the running back, and you and I just kept saying both of them.
Both of them,
And
baby.
I think that we could have a world where both Isaiah Pacheco and Brashard Smith can both be fantasy relevant this year.
Yeah, man. I think the other ones, I'm curious to see what ends up happening with that Browns backfield. That's another one. Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins.
Every time I think, man, it's really tough being a Bears fan, I just reshape my perspective and say, at least I'm not a Browns fan.
And the Browns are like, hold my beer, buddy. Hold it. All right. That's gonna do it for us, man. We hit on a bunch of players here today. We're gonna be back again next week. We are really close to ramping up the production here from our end, and we've got big stuff coming up. We've got the Fantasy Football Expo in a couple weeks here. We've got so many things. We're nearing what we call the Football Guys Red Zone, where the draft is coming up, the fantasy football draft weekend, the season, everything. We're going to start getting training camp news, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, whether that's on YouTube or on the podcast side of things. And as always, just want to thank you guys for watching or listening all the way through. For myself, for Dave, we'll see you next time. Adios.